And this week we look at the spiritual promise of AA, which is we will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. Boy, life will be boring now. Imagine when we stop just tending to our own needs. You know, if we really sat down and gave an honest evaluation of how much time we spend on giving interest to our own needs versus time that we give interest to others' needs, how balanced would we be? And the more unbalanced we'd be in the time of giving to ourselves, to our own needs, may dictate or may reflect that we're very selfish. And any unhealthy behavior, bad habit, or to the extreme, an addiction that we're doing, all of those behaviors are about being selfish. And so what we've done this year is we've created our theme was to be a vessel for transformation. And that means that where change occurs is within this body, within this heart, within this soul, within this mind, within the spirit. This is where change occurs. Change does not occur out here. Change is happening out here all the time. We've never lived two of the same days ever exactly alike. There isn't 2 grains of sand anywhere on the ocean, on a beach anywhere in the world that's exactly alike. Change is always occurring. No 2 personalities have ever come into this world been exactly alike, thank God. How many personalities have you ever come across going, man, I'm glad there's only one of them? Boy, I could get personal there. So we've created this wonderful plan, this wonderful directory in how to create change in our lives. And so what we're going to look at today continuously is what does it take for us to make sure that we're not living a selfish life, that we're living a generous life. Because who do you want to be involved in? Who do you want to work for or work with? Who do you want to partner with? Who do you want to be in family with? Somebody that is generous and giving and sharing, or somebody that is selfish, devoted to making sure their needs are met always first. What do you mean you need to eat? My little 5-year-old daughter? I got to eat first. What do you mean you need some attention? I got a TV show I got to watch. So we're going to look at what does it take to make that shift. And so I've been enjoying sharing a quote at the beginning of my talks the last few weeks, and I came across another one I want to share with you to kind of get us going here, by Jonathan Swift, author. It says, a person should never be ashamed to own that they have been in the wrong. Anybody in here ever been hesitant to own a time that you've been in the wrong? 20 years ago, you still haven't owned it. Here's what he finishes that statement up with is, which is but saying that one is wiser today than yesterday. Now this is being played out on a worldwide level right now. Do you all know that? If you've been following the news at all, Rupert Murdoch is just in a little bit of trouble. And he wrote yesterday an apology that was basically put out all through England and worldwide. A letter of apology stating exactly what I'm saying. A person should never be ashamed to own that they have been wrong. And last week I talked about how pride is what prevents us from owning our wrongs. Because we're so little in our self-esteem that we're hesitant to own our wrongs by admitting that we made a mistake. So here's Rupert Murdoch. Now he's not apologizing just to one person. How many of us just have one person to apologize and we don't want to do that? He's apologizing to millions. Millions. His laundry, which is what we here in Canada do not like people knowing that we have dirty laundry, do we? Say no. We protect our dirty laundry with everything we got. Man, when people come over, we don't only close the door to our laundry room, we bolt it. We chain it down. We barricade it. We don't want anybody seeing that dirty laundry. He's got to put it out there, and here's what he wrote. News Corp Chief Executive Rupert Murdoch has apologized for any wrongdoing committed at the News of the World newspaper in a full-page spread published in British newspapers this weekend. Under a large headline, he writes, "We are sorry." And here's what the message that he wrote contained, and he signed it himself. The news of the world was in the business of holding others to account. It failed when it came to itself. We are sorry for the serious wrongdoing that occurred. We are deeply sorry for the hurt suffered by the individuals affected. We regret not acting faster to sort things out. I realize that simply apologizing is not enough. Our business was founded on the idea that a free and open press should be a positive force in society. We need to live up to this. In the coming days, as we take further concrete steps to resolve these issues and make amends for the damage they have caused, you will hear more from us. Sincerely, Rupert Murdoch. The man is a multi-billionaire, and he is being humbled like he has never been humbled in his life. He will be a better man when he comes through this at the end. Right now, he's getting his laundry cleaned. But when he comes out on the end, he's going to be much wiser. How many of us have somebody in our life we could write a letter such as that to? But boy, we're afraid to. Wait till we get to the next couple of steps. So the seventh promise of sobriety is self-seeking will slip away. This promise becomes one of the benefits of sobriety when we are aware that we have made spiritual progress. Before recovery, before entering into our spiritual journey, being awakened, being aware, being alert that we are on a spiritual journey, we always insisted that our unhealthy behaviors, our bad habits, or our addictions were nobody's business. Right? How many of you may have participated in smoking a little of that, funny stuff, the herb, at 15 or 16, or 40 or 50 or 60, and we hide it. We were hiding it as a kid, and we still hide it. And we don't want anybody to know that we've been hiding it. True? Our attitude constantly put us on the defensive. We were sure we had to protect our rights. I got a right to smoke this stuff. Self-seeking and self-indulgence seemed wholly justified. Forget weed. I don't care what you want to make it. Food. Cigarettes. Alcohol. What is it that we hide and that we don't want others to know? In recovery, we realized self-centeredness created that stubborn denial that kept us from surrendering. We realized how much help we needed. Our grandiosity has to go. It was natural that while we were practicing our unhealthy behaviors, to exalt our egos. Do you understand? When we're doing something unhealthy, it's about exalting that unbalanced part of our ego. And I watched a wonderful movie last Sunday at the Levax household by Wayne Dyer. It was about living your purpose and leading a purposeful and meaningful life. And he had a really good little acronym for, is that what I'm looking for? You use letters to represent, anyway. Is that it, acronym? Thank you. For ego. And I know I've heard it before, I had forgot it, but what he used for ego, for when we're living out of our unbalanced part of our ego, is he says ego represents edging God out. So you see, anytime we're doing something unhealthy, when we're practicing a bad habit, what's a bad habit? Being impatient, being intolerant, judgmental. See, many of us are addicted. We think it has to be addicted to alcohol or sex or food or drugs or whatever. We can be addicted to being judgmental, to being critical, to being condemning, to putting others down. And when we are doing that, we are operating from an unhealthy part of our ego. And if you can just remember, anytime I'm coming from that place, I am edging God out of my life. Because if we were living a God-centered life, do you think when we're practicing and embracing a God-centered life, that would be, oh, you know what, I'm going to judge somebody, put somebody down so that I can feel better about myself because I'm living from my unhealthy part of my ego. And man, do we get committed and addicted to that unhealthy part of our ego. We love it. We want to get others to agree that this is the place to be. We want others to say, yeah, you're right. We want to, instead of saying, you know what, I'm not sure if you're living from a centered point of your life. You see, what we're constantly here doing our very best to do is to understand that God is not something that we spend 20 minutes a day with and then we go out and live our life. What we're doing here, our best, is to develop and deepen our inner relationship with that higher calling, with that higher essence, with the creative force that caused this universe to come in, which caused your cells to hold together in the unique way that it holds you into what you are, that we're living from that on a daily basis, in a minute to minute, moment to moment. And yes, there are parts of times where we stray and get on the outside of that essence. Have you had those moments when you're on the outside of those essence? If you've been in a relationship, you probably had several last week. If you've been at work, you probably have a time where it's hard. It felt really hard to stay grounded, clear, connected, divinely aware and awake. It felt much easier to be critical, condemning, shaming, blaming, whatever that is. Is that not true at times? And we're battling that. Well, some of us like being on the edge, and getting in the middle of our God-centeredness is scary to us because we're not sure if we can trust that. Because maybe we felt that essence has let us down a time or two, which we've looked at very clearly in the last several weeks that we've been exploring this wonderful and powerful topic. If we are self-made successes in a professional field, we can easily begin to worship the creator of our success, which is who? Ourselves. How many of us or do we know that have become very successful and they take all the credit for it? I made myself what I am today. I'm a self-made millionaire. Egotists devote little time to character growth. So if we look in the last 6 months, how much time have we spent working on improving our character growth, which means our nature, our overall nature, how we sense and feel and experience life, our temperament. Are we still just as easily rattled with a little upset or with being told no or by not getting our way as we were 6 months ago, as we were 6 years ago, as we were when we were 6? Have we improved on our personality? Are you making yourself lovable that others can't wait to hang out with you? Have you improved there any? If your friendship circle is expanding, you probably are becoming more lovable, more fun, more joyful, more easily to get along with. Are we improving our personalities? Or are we shrinking more in as time goes by? Which one is it? Our moral fiber. It's going to come up a lot in the next few months. What is our moral fiber? And our disposition in life. Do we generally have a sunny disposition, or are we just pissy? Pissy. Any potential change for the better is restrained by a lack of humility. That's why we focused on humility. When we don't have humility, we don't want potential change in our life. Even when a person grows tired of misery. Have you or anyone you ever known just been miserable for a long time and you go, God, how many years can you keep being miserable? That can't be fun. A person that is actively practicing an addiction lacks open-mindedness. It means we're not willing to hear the truth. Though often wrong, a person practicing an unhealthy behavior never doubts that they are right. Only when an admission of and acceptance show them that they are just human beings. No more or less are they ready to welcome helping hands. And the message I want to make sure that we lay down on a regular basis here is that we are human beings and we all make mistakes. It's okay to make a mistake. It does not mean you're a bad person. It simply proves that you are a human being. I'm the first one to say, man, I make mistakes. I'm glad when I can get through an hour. I am not perfect. I want to make sure you all know that. As a human being, I have flaws, I make mistakes, I goof up, I say things that I don't intend to say at the wrong time, in an insensitive moment. I've done those things and more. On a spiritual level, I am perfect. As all of us, on a spiritual level, nothing's ever happened to you or any been done to you or you've ever done to yourself has ever harmed your spirit, it is inharmable. But as a human being, we have flaws. And if we're still not willing to look at that flaws, we have a hard time ever improving. If I have a flaw in my golf swing and I never examine it, I can never improve it. Until I look at my flaws, can I improve myself as a human being? We are humans here having this human experience. And I don't know about you, but sometimes the human experience is great. It's great. And other times, Heather says it sucks. This is what I hear up front. You ought to hear what this woman says to me up front. She's one of these, you've heard of backseat drivers? She's a front seat church driver. I'm proud of it. So, acceptance in recovery is without reservation. We see self-seeking as only an inferiority complex turned inside out. As our self-centeredness slips away, humility will make a quiet entrance. Then the person in recovery becomes teachable and will never stop learning new truths about themselves. As our self-seeking diminishes, humility allows us to listen. Arrogant people are not ready to hear the truth. How many of us have become addicted to our arrogance? I can't hear anything new because I already know it all. I already know this. I've been in self-help, spirituality, new thought for 5 years. I know it all. I'm good. There's nothing you can teach me. Unless we hear, we cannot grow. We find that transformation is a must for us. Without it, we cannot take the vital inventories that identify our shortcomings. Without change, old ideas will dominate our lives. All change must come from within us. Nobody else can alter us. Not even AA plays that role. It simply gives us the tools to change ourselves. We've been going for 7 months now, 6.5. We're over halfway through our program. How many of us have actually went home after a Sunday sermon and embraced one of these steps and really looked at it? Or does our arrogance say, that's not for me? I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't gamble, I don't have sex outside of my current relationship, whatever that is. But I don't have anything else to look at. That's it. I'm good. Good to go. And what I've been challenging you with, if that's so, go ask the 5 friends you spend the most personal time with. See if they agree with you that you have nothing to improve on in your life. Nothing. So results depend on how much we want to change. How much do we want to change? How much do we want to have transformation occur? A small shift in how we live our daily lives so that we're a little less stressful, a little less anxious, a little less filled with anxiety, which helps reduce the stress that we place on our immune system, which helps keeps our body healthy. These are the benefits and the tools of why we want to make sure that we're not arrogant enough to prevent our healing from occurring. So how hard are we willing to work, and how open to advice from experienced friends are our minds? If we take the suggested steps of recovery, it will be impossible not to change. In making change, it is well to remember the adage, you must first empty the old, dirty water from the pitcher before you can fill it with new, clean water. Are all of our pitchers in here spotless? Spotless. Now, sometimes we allow outside sources to dirty our water. See how you would have responded to this event. It's called Grandma Still Drives. Grandma is 88 years old and still drives her own car right here in Victoria. She writes, Dear granddaughter, the other day I went up to our local Christian bookstore and saw a Honk If You Love Jesus bumper sticker. I was feeling particularly sassy that day because I had just come from a thrilling choir performance followed by a thunderous prayer meeting. So I bought the sticker and put it on my bumper. Boy, am I glad I did. What an uplifting experience that followed. I was stopped at a red light at a busy intersection, just lost in thought about the Lord and how good He is, and I didn't notice that the light had changed. It is a good thing someone else loves Jesus behind me, because if he hadn't honked, I'd have never noticed. I found that lots of people love Jesus. While I was sitting at the green light, the guy behind started honking like crazy. And then he leaned out of his window and screamed, "For the love of God, go, go, go! Jesus Christ, go!" What an exuberant cheerleader he was for Jesus. Everyone started honking. I just leaned out my window and started waving and smiling at all those loving people. I even honked my horn a few times to share in the love. There must have been a man from Florida back there, because I heard him yelling something about a sunny beach. I saw another guy waving in a funny way with only his middle finger stuck up in the air. I asked my young teenage grandson in the back seat what that meant, and he said it was probably a Hawaiian good luck sign or something like that. Well, I've never met anyone from Hawaii, so I leaned out the window and gave him the good luck sign right back. My grandson burst out laughing. Why, even he was enjoying this religious experience. A couple of people were so caught up in the joy of the moment that they got out of their cars and started walking towards me. I bet they wanted to pray or ask what church I attended. But this is when I noticed the light had changed. So grinning, I waved at all my brothers and sisters and drove on through the intersection. I happened to notice that I was the only car that got through the intersection before the light changed, and felt kind of sad that I had to leave them after all the love we had shared. So I slowed the car down, leaned out the window, and gave them all the Hawaiian good luck sign. One last time as I drove away. Praise the Lord for such wonderful folks right here in Victoria. We'll write again soon. Love, Grandma. Two different perceptions being displayed there. How many of us have been like Grandma when it comes to our unhealthy adult behaviors and addictions and bad habits? Saying, you know what, everyone else around me is enjoying when I'm like this. They all love it. They don't notice. They think it's good. Woo! When everyone is saying, go! Yesterday, I was at Costco for my weekly trip, and we were having lunch. Pizza and French fries. Healthy. And we were sitting there was 5 of us. We had Emily, Annie and Dre's son, and my stepdaughter. Oh, son, daughter. Perception. It's all perception. We had our girls were all there, and my 2.5-year-old daughter and Crystal and I were sitting there at the table, and right next to us was a mother or an elderly lady with a little baby on her knee. And us, me being a little elderly with a child of my own, we're always very cautious. And Crystal said to the lady, "Is that your granddaughter?" And the baby was Asian. And she said, "No, I'm the adopted grandma." And on the little girl's t-shirt was printed, "This is what sweet looks like." And she was 20 months old. And Crystal, being Crystal, commented on, "Oh, she's so sweet. And this is what sweet looks like." And the grandma says, "Well, most of the time." But other times she's not so sweet. At 20 months old. Then the mother came over, along with the dad, and it turns out the baby has only been adopted for 4 or 5 months from China. They'd just gotten the baby 5 months ago or so. And Crystal said something, "Oh, you must be really excited to have this baby." It was probably a lot of work, because we have neighbors that have spent the last 10 years trying to get a baby, and they haven't been able to pull all those strings and put it all together. And she said, yeah, but I'm not sure if it's been worth it. And that's what she's telling us. When we walk around in ignorance, addicted to our unknowingness, that our thought is what shapes lives and those lives around us. Not knowing that that thought of that person was shaping that little baby's life. How many of us are so unconscious at times that we don't realize that our thoughts are what shape our life? Emotions are what drive us, but our thoughts are what shape our life. How many of us have been unconscious in how we've shaped our life? We've shaped ourselves to believe that we're not good, we're not this, we're not that, we don't have enough of this, we're not smart, we're not this, whatever it is. We've used our thoughts to shape that. We can take that same power and transform it and shift it and cause change in our life, that we can begin to use the power of our thought to shape our life, to create anything it is that we want in our life. And when we move to that point, we realize that we can be generous with our thoughts, generous with our energy, by giving to ourselves, by not going out here and needing you to fill my needs, but knowing that God will fill all the needs that I have. And as I use those needs to fill my life, I can then give and contribute outside of myself. And I can shape the world around me in such a way that it looks that magical dream experience and powerful the ideal that we all had when we said, I'll come to earth. You understand that we all agreed at some level to come here to earth. What you were given a great power when you stepped foot onto this blessed planet. And what have we done with that blessed power? Have we shaped our life so that it reflects the magnificence of the essence that created us? Or are we still walking around with a poor me? Life stinks. Can't get any breaks. Somebody else's fault. When do we realize how powerful our thoughts are? This life is precious. This thing that we're living is precious. It's not here forever. I want to finish the story, this talk this morning, with this story. As perhaps I believe the story sums up the importance of losing interest in our own selfish needs and becoming more interested in others, and especially in the preciousness of life. And here's how it goes. The older I get, the more I enjoy Saturday morning. Perhaps it's the quiet solitude that comes with being the first to rise. Or maybe it's the unbounded joy of not having to be at work. Either way, the first few hours of a Saturday morning are most enjoyable. A few weeks ago, I was shuffling toward the garage with a steaming cup of coffee in one hand and the morning paper in the other. What began as a typical Saturday morning turned into one of those lessons that life seems to hand you from time to time. Let me tell you about it. I turned the dial up on the phone portion of the band of my ham radio in order to listen to a Saturday morning chat line. Along the way, I came across an older sounding chap with a tremendous signal and a golden voice. You know the kind. He sounded like he should be in the broadcasting business. He was telling whomever he was talking to about 1,000 marbles. I was intrigued, and I stopped to listen to what he had to say. Well, Tom, it sure sounds like you're busy with your job. I'm sure they pay you well, but it's a shame you have to be away from your home and your family so much. Hard to believe a young fellow should have to work 60 or 70 hours a week to make ends meet. It's too bad you missed your daughter's dance recital, he continued. Let me tell you something that helped me keep my own priorities. And that's when he began to explain the theory of 1,000 marbles. You see, I sat down one day and I did a little arithmetic. The average person lives about 75 years. I know some live more and some live less, but on average, folks live about 75 years. Now then, I multiplied 75 times 52, and I came up with 3,900, which is the number of Saturdays that the average person has in their entire lifetime. Now stick with me, Tom. I'm getting to the important part, he said. It took me until I was 55 years old to think about all this in any detail at all. He went on, And by the time I had lived through over 2,800 Saturdays, I got to thinking that if I lived to be 75, I only had about 1,000 of them then left to enjoy. So I went to a toy store and I bought every single marble they had. I ended up having to visit 3 toy stores to round up 1,000 marbles. I took them home and put them inside a large clear plastic container right here in the shack next to my radio gear. Every Saturday since then, I have taken one marble out and thrown it away. I found that by watching the marbles diminish, I focused more on the really important things in life. There's nothing like watching your time here on this earth run out to help you get your priorities straight. Now let me tell you one last thing before I sign off with you and take my lovely wife out for breakfast. This morning, I took the very last marble out of the container. I figure that if I make it until next Saturday, then I have been given a little extra time. And the one thing we can all use is a little more time. It was nice to meet you, Tom. I hope you spend more time with your family, and I hope to meet you again here on the band. This is a 75-year-old man, clear and going QRT. Good morning. You could have heard a pin drop on the band when this fellow signed off. I guess he gave us all a lot to think about. I had planned to work on the antenna that morning on my radio, and then I was going to meet up with a few radio hams to work on the next club newsletter. Instead, I went upstairs, woke my wife up with a kiss. Come on, honey, I'm taking you and the kids to breakfast. What brought this on? She asked with a smile. Oh, nothing special. It's just been a long time since we spent a Saturday together with the kids. And hey, can we stop at a toy store while we're out? I need to buy some marbles. So where are we in that picture? How many Saturdays, Sundays, Mondays, and the rest of the week have just passed? How many? How many have passed where we've been focused on ourselves instead of looking around what we do have? We live here in one of the most beautiful places on earth. We have some of the greatest community right here in our midst. How much of it do we miss because we're too focused on the doingness instead of the beingness? That's why we come here on Sundays, to hang out with each other, to be with each other, to be together and to connect. To end from William Blake, the person who never alters their opinion is like standing water and breeds reptiles of the mind. Finally, I want you to say this affirmation with me. And let's say it with a little enthusiasm and energy behind it. Together. God, help me to be open to new opinions, to things I had never thought of on my own. And with that, let us pray.